The episode you're about to hear is authorised by me, Kate Hulett, at 106 High Street Mall, Fremantle. Cost of living, housing, integrity, transparency, all of those issues are tied up with the North West Shelf decision, which we expect to be made very soon after the election, because we know it's on Plibisec's desk. And I see that as our absolute bargaining chip in our negotiations to provide confidence in supply. Good afternoon.
Hi everyone, this is A Piece of Kate. I'm Emma Pegram.
And I am Kate Hulett.
It's
Monday.
Monday.
Midday-ish.
Monday.
Early afternoon.
Day. Yeah, and we are at the Cockburn Arc because we've just been at pre-poll at Cockburn Gateway.
Yeah. I thought it
How was it
was going to be winter today, and I dressed as such, and I am much hotter than I thought. We're sitting under the Fremantle Dockers logo at the Arc, but in some shade, which is very nice. And
how was pre-poll this morning?
Water slides. Pre-poll it didn't feel busy. I think when I was there on Saturday, it was just so chockers.
Yeah.
Obviously, because Saturday shopping. But today was just steady. But as I was about to walk away to come here, a girl came over and said, "Oh my God, I just wanted to say hi. I'm a big fan. I love A Piece of Kate. I'm talking to my husband and my family about it," and it was really nice.
So nice.
And then another girl in a cool dress came out and said, "I just voted for you," and it was really... It's so nice.
It's pretty
It's
cool,
so nice.
isn't it? It's pretty cool.
It's interesting to think that, the girl who said she'd been listening to the pod just said, we just would never, ever, ever pay any attention if it was just Liberal and Labor like it's been for the last 94 years, you know? So what a joy that is. What a win that is.
I know, it's so cool. I drove by Fremantle pre-poll this morning. It was sort of like lunch break time, and it was absolutely full. Line out the door, down the street.
Fortunately for Federal, the Fremantle location isn't in that awful corner building. It's right where it kind of
there's space.
Should be, opposite the Town Hall and the Hulett Civic Centre. So it's actually quite a nice little spot to go and vote. And it's quite a buoyant vibe there.
It's so crazy though, we were talking about it on the way to pre-poll, like how many people are voting early. We know, we've just had a look at the numbers this morning, and about 17%, almost 18% of the Fremantle division has already cast a vote. And we've got another week of pre-poll, so we feel like it'll probably be around 45% of people who voted before election day, which is so many.
So of the, 130,000 people, maybe 60,000 will vote before election day, which is unusual, and it's a kind of a different, and I'm sure all the parties are feeling this, you kind of think these final 2 weeks are your final pitch, and all right, let's resolve everything. But if half the people voted, then you're like, we should have done this. It's a funny thing.
I'm not sure about it.
Every other year you've had to have a better, a proper reason. Quite an interrogated reason to vote early, but this time it's just like, what's your reason? I am here. Fine, off you go. Vote away. So it will make it easier on election day to manage the remaining, say, 70,000 people. But of course, it's going to be quite different because that's 70,000 people spread over 35 feels like that, 35 polling booths. So it's just going to be quite a different vibe, and it will be so interesting to compare that to state and, how it all runs.
It does strike me though that it's a shame that it all gets kind of watered down and even on the day, 35 booths for that amount of voters, it's like around double, maybe a bit more than that, the amount of people that voted at the state election across 4 times the amount of booths, which is, I don't know, it feels like this atomisation of that day and the process of voting, which is usually this thing that you go and do as a community, and you've all got the same information, and you go to the polls, and the candidates are all there.
It's a bit of a party.
And it's it does feel like a dissolving of that, which I'm not sure is a great thing.
No,
but
I wonder how that will be viewed and reflected on for the next election in 3 years, because I think you're right. It is it's like, you know, you go to church on Sundays, but if you did it every day, it kind of just changes the main mass. Not that that's a strange analogy, but you get me. I think there is something in the all doing it on one day, but after the schmozzle of the state, it will be easier and more chilled, hopefully, on this day.
Another thing that I reckon is worth noting about it, and I haven't thought this all the way through, so let's do it on the podcast, is I do feel that it intrinsically kind of advantages the major parties in a way to have it strewn across the 2 weeks. Like, it's definitely harder for an independent to cover all of the booths.
Yeah. Particularly when we know
in a sense, like we don't have staffing, we don't, Well, we have amazing volunteers, and we're so very lucky to have that. Not all independents will have that, and not all minor parties will have that. But, of course, the major parties do, and they have all of the materials and signs and umbrellas and everything already, like, made and printed from previous years and whatnot to bring
and also,
out. So
they're sending people to the booths from across the state. We are just... We've got Fremantle people in Fremantle, whereas they've got, people from other divisions over at
filling gaps.
Filling gaps. And they often pay their people to be standing around as well. So it's more of a job rather than a civic duty. So, absolutely, you're completely right. But, of course, the whole system benefits the major parties, and that's why we have to
break it.
Take it down.
Speaking of which...
Oh, taking it down.
Yeah, speaking of taking down the system. We're going to talk today about what an Albanese minority government looks like for Australia, because we've been talking about the last few days and talking to voters and the community about the fact that about the fact that it does look like we're on track to have an Albanese government. Dutton's absolutely fallen off a cliff with his polling.
He's fallen under a cliff at that video that we saw today.
I can't believe it's happened again. Another truck stuck under another bridge for the Libs.
A level truck. Was it under a bridge or up on a curb or something?
No, I think it was under
it was his campaign bus.
Wedged under something. Yeah, bad.
Cringe.
Real bad. The journos having to try to help them get it
almost
unwedged.
Like the drivers are sabotaging. Kind of on them.
Maybe. But yeah, fallen off a cliff, lowest, on track to record the lowest share of votes since World War II, which is, kind of crazy.
It's really embarrassing. And, it looks like after the election, Peter Dutton won't retain his spot as leader of the opposition, because that's a real, reflection on him and the work that he's done and the way that he's campaigned and leading, and the fact that he's, rather than talking about the issues and actual solutions to the issues, he's just talking about stupid little culture war, little bitsy fights, which are just so...
People are sick of it.
It's just so... We're so over it.
And we talk a lot about the fact that, people might think the coalition's bad, but it's not a reason to just think that Labor's good. It's not you're bad, you're good. It's like... Labor's still done a pretty shitty job, to put it lightly.
The Juice media would say it's shit light or the shit party. And that's what we're being offered, is shit light or shit. And it's like, well, actually, we don't want either of those. We want an actual viable, good option to represent us, please.
So let's think about, it's Saturday, everyone's voted, it's Saturday night, the numbers start coming in. The ideal outcome, with what the polls are looking like right now, which is that Albo's on track to get the most votes. Ideal outcome in our minds and Fremantle's mind, we hope, is that that's a minority government, that Labor's kept to a minority where they still have to negotiate and form government with other people on the crossbench. So let's talk about what that looks like.
So the kind of the first step is that would be called a hung parliament. So neither major party has enough votes to form a majority. So both of them have won under 76 seats.
Correct.
So that's called a hung parliament. And then they will then come to the independents and minor parties to talk to them about saying, will you come and join us? And it's not in a coalition. So it's not like the Liberals and Nationals coalition, which is something else to talk about.
They're looking for like an informal agreement that they're going to be backed
So then
in.
they get over the 76 that they require to govern as a minority government. And it's happened before, a couple of times, most recently in the Julia Gillard days. And it was actually the most productive period of Australian government, that minority government. So
Past 560 bills we read earlier today.
which is an unbelievable amount. 560 bills and quite transformative items, including, getting kids dental into Medicare and NDIS and the carbon reduction tax. So,
which, no matter what you think of any of these things, like they're big reformist things that are hard to, pass. Like they're hard to get through. I mean, today it's hard to imagine some of those things happening just in the kind of political, landscape, broadly speaking, even with a majority government. So it shows that you can work in a minority government, you can convince people, you can get
and actually you can get bigger changes because you've got smaller parties who are demanding more from the government. And the government is a big, slow beast. And then you've got these minor parties and independents who are prodding them up the bum to think bigger and deliver better. And then look what happened, this incredible output of, really positive,
change,
life-changing, bills and legislations and laws. So, it was a very productive time. But of course you will read in the press and information coming out from the two main parties that they're like, it's scary, it's bad, it's not going to be good for the country. But they are so desperately scared of losing power that, of course, that would be their rhetoric. And the papers too, they see they lose power if they don't have the kind of ear of one of the major parties to twist. So the ultimate aim, the best outcome, is an Albanese-led minority government. So what does that mean? After election day, we get a phone call.
I mean, do we make the phone call? Do we get the phone call?
Do we sit around a phone?
We're going to have to start asking some.
This is what I
experts.
imagine happens. The Albanese and his merry men and women start calling around and saying, yo, what up? Well done.
What's going on over there?
You took a seat from us. Will you, I guess the thing that they want is to secure what's called confidence and supply. It's not a binding, like, coalition-style agreement. It's just confidence and supply is. Confidence means if, say Peter Dutton says, say Peter Dutton remarkably saves his seat and he's still leader of the opposition, and he says, we hold a motion, call a motion.
Bring a motion.
A motion.
Of no confidence.
Not a motion, but a motion of no confidence against the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And then if you've got confidence from a group of crossbenchers, they will back you and say, no, we have confidence in him or her.
So they can keep governing. It's to secure the
stability.
Correct.
Exactly. And that is not binding. You can change your mind. So if then something wackadoo happens, you can go, well, I do not have no confidence any longer. Supply means, yes, I will sign off whatever's required to enable our government schools and our government hospitals and all of our government workers to continue being paid, and the money that's collected through the taxes is still helping run the country where it needs to run. So it's basically, the agreement is just to maintain stability. So there's not like stopping of payments and people are out on the streets. It's the very baseline, running the government to make sure it's all ticking over fine.
Yeah.
There is nothing signed, and the people that agree to give confidence and supply maintain their absolute independence to vote the way they want on anything else that comes forward. So if I said, okay, let's do a deal about whatever issue, and I will then give you confidence and supply, I still will vote independently on every single piece of legislation or every bill that comes up, which means I can still continue to absolutely represent the community as promised for the next 3 years. So it's an ideal outcome. But what's the negotiation bit then? How do you imagine that
I
happening?
was interested in reading some reflections from existing and former independents about, their experience during the Gillard government. And they were kind of saying, interestingly, the first 2 weeks after election day is like the time where you have like potentially the most impact you may ever have as an independent. I don't know if that's still true now because the crossbench is bigger and they can do things together, whereas back then there were not as many of them. But I think it remains true that period after election day is when you get to kind of really put your agenda on the national stage, and...
So you set out, my community care most about these issues. What are you going to give us in regards to those issues? And then I'll give you confidence in supply because they need it.
And there are some, I think, very clear things that we have heard from the community through this whole process that we know they care about, that are important to them. And some of them are, things that I think will sort of need to be dealt with by the government quite immediately. For example, Northwest Shelf.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like the most easy example, standalone issue that touches on cost of living, housing, integrity, transparency. All of those issues are tied up with the Northwest Shelf decision, which we expect to be made very soon after the election because we know it's on Plibisec's desk. And I see that as our absolute bargaining chip in our negotiations to provide confidence in supply. The Northwest Shelf deal is, so Woodside built this facility. It's a dirty gas plant that was built 40 years ago in the early 80s. It's coming to the end of its useful life. So they're saying, can we extend it another 50 years? So it will be 2070. So we can keep...
Expand and extend.
We can keep sucking out this gas and exporting it. And, I mean, there's so many bad parts of this. One, exported gas is not good for us because we're not getting anything for it. We don't get royalties and all the income that we are rightly owed.
For our resources that we own, yeah.
Secondly, it's a climate disaster, this project, absolute disaster. It's going to release more carbon into the atmosphere than anything else, and therefore it negates every little bit of good climate work that the Labor government have done.
Like multiple times over.
It's just kooky-looky.
And I reckon it's worth pointing out there as well, because we've talked about this a lot and I feel like we always sort of forget to emphasise it, that when you do that, that is also a cost of living issue because all of the initiatives that are in place that are invested in order to limit emissions in other parts of the economy cost money and they're transitions that are happening that, require investment. And to just like erase all of that so that
throwing your money away.
Big company can profit more off exporting gas that we own for $0. It's just like so crazy to me.
It's cost of living because of that. It's cost of living because we're giving all this away and we could be, although I don't think we should be exporting gas, at least we should be making some flipping money off it and spending it on hospitals and roads and education. But the other thing is something that came up in conversations this week was, the amount of money that both parties are going to pledge into defence, like war weapons and weapons of destruction. One of the most looming defence issues we've got coming are climate refugees and people fleeing from flood and fire and drought and the fact that their country no longer produces food. And I think dealing with that is dealing with the climate emergency in a proper way, and expanding and extending and enabling more gas is absolutely against our national defence interests. We need to protect the climate of the world. I always say when people are like getting angry at me about, what about the, emissions of China or whatever? If you have a bowl of soup and you put a drop of poison in it, you don't eat any of the soup. And the soup is the planet. We've got to reduce everything that's coming out of everywhere. And actually, places like China are racing forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day they just go, we've switched everything, we're now zero emissions. Their roads are silent with cars because they're all electric. It's a real massive failing. Northwest Shelf is a huge failing. It shouldn't even be up for discussion. We don't need more gas to be exported. We're throwing money away. It's negating everything that we've done that's been good.
Power more expensive.
Putting our power prices up. It's, you know, the money that the government will go to subsidise it, and that will include new roads and power and infrastructure up there. The fact that Woodside then will sponsor the dockers or, you know, cover the nippers, it's them trying to show themselves as a good, loving company, but actually they are criminals. And they are going to annihilate the future for our country and the entire planet.
And contribute nothing in the meantime.
It will be seen as criminal at one point in the future. And at this moment, the government has a duty of care for us and our children and our unborn children for the future. And the government are not delivering on a duty of care.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive thing that, that to have more people in Parliament who can, you know, draw attention to it, raise awareness about the reality of it, like not just spin off the same narrative about good or bad, like, you know, in these black and white terms necessarily that the major parties like to...
They'll say jobs or economy or...
Yeah, it's like
we need it.
No one actually knows what it is or why we need it or why it's supposed to be good.
We don't need export.
It's never explained.
It's not
You're
jobs.
just told it is, therefore, you know...
And at the end of the conversation. Yeah. And it's in our state. It's on the land that we live in, the waters we swim in. You know, we've spoken before about the ancient rock art that's being decimated thanks to the acid that's coming out of the plants that are running currently. And it's really gross.
Yeah.
And just not to forget that the media have interests in all those gas companies, so of course they're supportive of it, and of course they'll be running the lines that we've all read, so they will not like to hear what I have to say. But if the community vote me in, there is a clear mandate that we do not want this project to be signed off.
I reckon there's so much to force Labor for action on. Particularly, I mean, there's like lots of climate and environment stuff that I think they like to, you know, talk a kind of a big game about, but actually when you look at the reality, it's not going in the right direction.
No, it's so
under
incremental.
Labor. And it's so incremental. And because they're kind of viewed as the lesser of two evils when it comes to climate and nature, they're kind of forgiven their sins a little bit. And that, you know, that just can't be allowed to continue.
You have one conversation with an expert in the area and it's very clear how desperately they're failing us. I mean, the nature positive laws are a good example of something they promised at the last election, and people go, yeah, we'll vote for you because we agree that nature and biodiversity should be protected. We want our forests protected and our coral reefs and our, you know, beautiful landscapes that we adore, we love. It's part of who we are. And then they go, oh, we're going to do it next election. We promise next time, you know, and that just shows, that's a decision. It shows where their priority is. They're opening gas, you know, signing off gas and coal projects, and they're kicking down the street the nature positive and biodiversity protections. So you can see where the decision making is, and that is not good enough. And it's a failure, an absolute failure. And that is why I'm here. That's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we're spending all these hours trying to change the system, because the system is completely broken.
Same in other areas as well. We saw last week that Albo ruled out any review of negative gearing and, you know, other sort of structural reforms in the housing market. I mean, I get that he's facing an election and he's probably not going to choose now to come out and say, yeah, we should definitely scrap negative gearing. But, you know, to completely close the door to it for all the years they've been in government and not make any progress on kind of shifting the conversation around what's happening in the housing market when we're living through the worst housing crisis we've ever had. Like if there's any time to start talking about how we can fix that, it's clearly now.
Well, it's been
and we're not.
3 years. You know, like I have all these conversations with people saying, why is it that they just, it gets to a month before the election and they offer us all this stuff? Like, we would prefer to be voting on the fact that they've done such a good job and they're really working for us. But it comes to the end, offer us all this stuff, $5 a week or 25 cents here. And then we're like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, and it's like the systems are all integrated and they're all cooked. And we need to look at them all from top to bottom and in depth. And seriously, we need to seriously look at them. Like grown-ups, it is a hard job to govern a country. Yes, accepted. But that's what you're elected to do. And you've got billions of dollars coming in and you've got to use it and spend it in the best way for the majority of people.
Rather than treating the entire kind of election cycle, I think, as
little band-aid.
Part of getting elected. Like, you know, there's no time to govern. They're always worried about the next election. And the timescales are so short. How are we supposed to start thinking about these large-scale issues that are going to affect us for generations and generations when we're working on a 1.5 year to 3 year timescale all the time?
It's like the government are just silly little, like, movie stars trying to win a pitch or something, a job. But you need serious people doing serious work underneath all of the time. And it goes back to the conversation we had last week where I cried. But the planning, we need 20, 50, 70-year, 100-year plans for our country. And what's the modelling showing our population's looking like? Is it getting very old? Are we going to need to bring young people in? What's happening with education? What's happening with housing? We are not looking at anything in a long-term way. We are looking at it in, okay, I'll just get through the next 3 years and I'll promise 25 cents here and then we'll do $7 there. And, you know, it's like we've got big structural cracks through our foundations and we need to start repairing them with grown-ups sensibly discussing all the options long-term, looking at other countries, who's done what's been effective and impactful and what populations are, you know, showing high levels of satisfaction, low levels of poverty, low levels of domestic abuse, you know, diseases of despair, all of that stuff that we can look at holistically, which often comes down to poverty and housing. And then let's look at ways that we can fix that.
I reckon this is another big benefit of the crossbench and having a minority government, because it means that not only at the election time and in this period after the election where you can be negotiating and looking at, you know, forcing action on things or forcing commitments on things that are important to your community, you also are there throughout the cycle to kind of shift the tone of conversation, shift the tone of political discourse.
Absolutely. Stop the fighting and...
And like, if you can't stop it, which, you know, realistically it's a big beast, it's going to take time to like change the entire culture of politics in Australia, but you can at least be shining light on how eroding, corrosive and damaging that culture is to an engaged audience of people and voters and community members who voted for you for that very reason, you know?
Yeah, not to participate in that behaviour, shine a light on it, act with integrity and honesty, and put everything on display. This is what happened today. This is how the people were talking about it and what their solutions were. This was actually really good. This was a complete waste of time. This is a stupid distraction. This was a really fantastic idea that got shot down, or we'll talk about it further. You know, I think I almost feel like I could be a journalist in there and kind of talking about everything that's happened. So everyone feels very engaged and a part of it, so they can see the failures or they can see the really good bits. And
totally.
we can elevate that.
Like an outsider going in, you're an investigator. Yeah, I think for me that's one of the most exciting things. The only reason they can get away, like the major party politicians can get away with being so disappointing, is because people are so over it that they've tuned out from watching it. So they're like, well, you know, they're not seeing how bad it is all the time. Like, we all know how bad it is, but we're not every day reminded of how disappointing and how little is getting done because we've actually stopped paying attention. And so if you can re-engage people with the process of politics, then they can't get away with it.
Yeah. Imagine when there was suddenly this boom in like house renovation shows or cooking shows and people get to see like the sausage being made. That's how it's going to be. It's going to be
Big brother
like,
for Parliament.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. I think it will be really interesting. And to reiterate, I don't know everything. You can't expect me to know everything, but that's why we have experts and
Don't
advice.
point at me.
That's what it makes sense. But it's acting with integrity and honesty and with a good intent. And I think that is, you know, people keep asking me about really specific policy lines, but it's almost, I'm looking at stuff holistically and the bigger picture and going in, not thinking about winning in 3 years, but thinking about what can we do in the next 3 years to be really productive and make some really excellent changes for the future.
Okay, let's leave it there.
Okay, so it's good. Background noise.
Kitties.
So it's Monday. So you're listening to this Tuesday morning.
There's 4 days left of pre-poll, then it's election day. We are still on the drive for volunteers for election day. We've got 35 booths to cover. We've got quite a lot of them covered already, but we've probably got, I don't know, we could have another 100 people. That would be useful if you
the more
feel like
people,
giving up some time on Saturday.
The fewer hours.
100%.
Everyone has to
the more people, the fewer hours, and also the more energy you can spread.
It's more joyful.
And it does make such a big difference, like having smiling faces at the polling booths. I really think people underestimate how huge it is. It's massive. You can convert voters.
Totally.
Like, you can show them what this is about. And
Penny just said that, like, the feeling when someone comes out and goes, I voted for you, she's like, that could have been the vote that changed the election. And that person maybe never would have considered voting for an independent that doesn't, you know, attach themselves to a party. And they did because of you. And you gave them that option, and therefore you changed the future. And, you know, this is a community campaign and you are the community. So it's so easy. You don't have to know any answers. It's literally just saying, hi, would you like to, you know, read about the independent candidate? It's so easy.
All the info you need. We've got, on Thursday night, we're having a big volunteer briefing. That's for people who are already signed up or for people who are thinking about signing up. So if you are curious, sceptical, want to know
online,
more,
right?
It's
so you can
online,
just call in.
It's a virtual gathering. Kate will be there.
Sit there silently.
Chat to everyone.
You can have your camera off.
Totally.
You can
be
moan
already
about
in bed or whatever. It's Thursday evening, I think 7 p.m. to be confirmed. But yes, jump on our website and sign up for that. That's it.
Gorgeous.
Wherever you're
Thank
listening,
you, everyone.
like and subscribe.
4 days to go.
We will have, 4 more episodes this week, and then, 3 more episodes this week, and then probably one on Sunday maybe. See how we
episode
how
22,
we go, how we feel.
We
don't know what the future looks like for a piece of cake.
It's like we've got a calendar that ends on Saturday night and then it's just blank.
Totally.
It's like a black hole.
There's 100%. Time does not exist after Saturday. But you'll know as soon as we know.
Gorgeous. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.